Hello and welcome to Past, Present, and Occult. I'm Emiliano Noriega Petty. Let's be honest, you study magic and the occult because, for lack of a better way to put it, you want to have a mystical or spiritual experience. Learning to meditate will improve your ability to perform magic, understand Kabbalah, other esoteric topics, and is key to having this religious or spiritual experience. But what experience should you be trying to have and how can you trigger it? You are going to do that by learning to meditate with the goals of developing focus and the ability to create detailed mental imagery, i.e., developing your imagination. Let me pause here because some people say that if you're using imagination, it isn't real. These people who make this claim will go on to say that it isn't real because it's all happening in your head, and my response is that's where everything is happening. All things from the sun, the sky, the desk in front of you, the love you feel for people, the fear you feel on occasion, all of that is happening inside of your mind. Therefore, it seems a little bit odd for us to split hairs that this particular thing is happening in the mind when all things are happening in the mind. Before I give any directions on meditation, I should give you a warning. Some studies do show that 10% of all people who practice meditation will develop what are called negative symptoms. These include, but are not limited to, depression, anger, stress, anxiety, depersonalization, and in some cases, psychosis. So I would like to encourage you, if you at any point feel negative symptoms, to visit a mental health specialist. Now, some of you might ask, how can meditation give you symptoms that it's supposed to remove? Well, the short answer is that meditation should not be taught by just anybody, and you should learn it from somebody who knows what they're doing. In fact, it's not best to do this on your own because it can make things worse on occasion. This is because since meditation develops focus, you can develop the tendency to focus on the wrong things. With that being said, I again want to return to the idea of the imagination or the mental or astral landscape. You see, meditation is good at allowing you to develop a capacity for having, let's call it, visions. For the sake of this video, I'm going to define a vision as an unexplained event that either is auditory or visual. It could be both, and it is profound in nature and religiously toned. At the very least, the experience that I'm discussing will involve an interaction with your consciousness and another, or at least ideally that's how it's going to feel. If you're wondering why I'm taking this point of view for this video, that is because I'm going to be looking at magic and meditation again through a Western lens, and this is how it tends to work within that setting. Now, what should you begin doing to produce this particular experience or vision? Well, the first step would be getting a journal. I encourage getting a journal because it helps you keep your thoughts in order and it lets you see how you're progressing and how different things are working for you or not working for you when you practice magic and meditation. After acquiring this journal, you're then going to need a period of about 3 to 6 months to begin the initial meditation practice that'll allow you to begin the rest of the work. During the 6 months, if you're going to work with the practice that I'm going to give you here, you're going to meditate in one of the 3 following ways. The reason that I'm going to have you meditate in these ways is so that you can develop your capacity for mental images. This is because you're trying to have visionary experiences if you want to do it the way that I've done it myself. The reason I chose to do it this way is I happen to have a very active imagination and it's very easy for me to see or hear things, so to say. You will need the following to practice any of the 3 techniques. First, you will need a quiet place where you can meditate. You will then need to choose a position. Any position is fine except lying down, so long as it will not distract you and cause you to move and fidget for at least 15 to 30 minutes in the long run. When you begin to practice meditation, it is okay to just start out in 5 or 10-minute sessions. However, the goal should be to build up to sometime between 30 minutes and 45 minutes. You don't have to meditate for this long every time, but you should try to meditate for about this amount of time if you're going to be going for these experiences. The final thing you need to consider that's important for all 3 of these practices is your breath. You should begin by focusing on your breathing. Try to slow it down, not to an incredibly slow level, but to a relaxed and calming degree. In the very beginning stages of meditation, I myself focus on my breathing to the point that I even think in with the breath, out with the breath, and then I continue on with that for about a minute or 2 before I just try to let my mind be quiet and let my thoughts drift through it. When I say that I'm letting thoughts just drift through my mind, what I mean is you can't necessarily control thoughts arising in the first couple of minutes of meditation. So what you're going to do is you're going to let thoughts come into your mind and you're going to let them slowly pass out of your mind. You're not going to fixate on any one thing yet. Right now the point is to empty the mind so you can fill it with what you want. Success at this stage simply feels like thoughts arising and going away over and over again until you achieve a sort of quiet within the mind that you're going to learn to extend by again allowing thoughts to arise, disappear, and then you're going to let yourself sit in that quiet that occurs between the thoughts, and you're going to enjoy that quiet. You're going to want to practice this quietness and stillness for about a month before you practice any of the 3 techniques. You'll be ready to practice one of the 3 techniques when you're able to make your mind quiet and still in this manner for about 5 minutes. After that, what you need is something to focus on, so now let me give you that. For the first technique, all you need is a candle. First, pick a time of day that will work for you, then make sure that it's quiet and dark. After that, find a place where you can put the candle at eye level so that you don't have to strain. Begin by taking the deep breaths and finding that inner stillness for about 5 minutes, as I mentioned before. After you do this, open your eyes and just allow yourself to watch the movements of the flame. As you're focusing on the flame, again, simply allow thoughts to arise and then without judgment, let them go away. Without fixating on it, try to make an effort to not blink too much or too little. Just be relaxed. Finally, try to focus some attention towards the area called your third eye, which is about the center of your forehead. Now, some of you might be saying, wait, I thought this was supposed to develop my ability to see images. Hold on, let me explain. Multiple studies show that candle meditation creates the ability for you to have rather vivid dreams and is even good at curing insomnia in some people. Developing the capacity to dream is incredibly useful in developing your magical talents, so candle meditation is definitely something I would recommend if you've been looking to have more vivid and profound dreams. Now, some of you are going to say, but I don't remember my dreams very well. Well, this is where the journal I mentioned earlier comes in handy. You're going to use it to record your dreams. One of the things that's really interesting about the human mind is that as you record your dreams, you're going to notice that dream recall becomes easier and easier as you begin doing this for a longer period of time. It's just something that happens. Multiple studies show that writing your dreams down increases the ability to recall mental imagery that comes up during a dream. So the first technique is great for those who are looking for a way to improve their chances of falling asleep and enjoy dreaming. I myself use it from time to time and I find it really fun. Before I go on to the second technique, I just want to remind you that you're hoping to pull this off for a maximum amount of time of at least 30 to 45 minutes. This second technique is actually pretty good for improving your ability to focus as well as improving your mental imagery. This technique is taken from Aleister Crowley's book 4, and the idea here is that you're going to try and focus on some fundamental shapes. This also comes from Tantra Yoga. An example of shapes include a blue triangle, a red square, just various fundamental basic geometric shapes and primary colors. I've included a list of these shapes down below, and you might be asking yourself, well, what's difficult about this? Who can't close their eyes and imagine a blue triangle with the point down? Well, there are certain people, I myself included when I first started, who have a lot of trouble keeping their mental imagery from doing whatever it wants. I, for example, found it very difficult when I was imagining, let's say, the red square on a completely black background to only imagine that. As a, for instance, the square would change color, or it would spin around, it would become a completely different shape, or sometimes a person's face. Now, some of you might say, oh, that sounds pretty cool, but no, that shows that I wasn't doing it correctly. It shows that my mind was playing with the idea and that I wasn't actually able to control entirely what I was thinking about and that I needed to master that skill. If this is the technique that you choose to practice, success will be rather easy to notice because you're just going to be able to fixate on the particular shape and color without it changing form and remaining exactly as you want it to be. As with the first technique, you'll want to be able to do this for a time of about 30 to 45 minutes when you consider it mastered or at least well practiced. The point of this second technique was to develop the ability to choose what you're focusing on. Now we move on to the third, and for this one you're going to need a deck of tarot cards with rather decent imagery drawn on the cards. By this I mean you're looking for tarot cards that depict scenes on them, so the Rider-Waite deck is a pretty good one to choose from. Or any other deck that just has a story portrayed through pictures on the card's surface. What you're going to do is, again, you're going to get into a meditative position, you're going to find a good place and time, and you're going to center yourself as with the other two techniques. You will then look at the tarot card for about a minute or two, and you will then close your eyes and try to place yourself within the scene portrayed on the card. You will now let yourself have, for lack of a better word, a lucid dream, and you're going to let yourself flow through the scene. You're going to go wherever you feel you should go. You'll interact with whatever you should interact with or whoever you should interact with. You'll note these experiences in your journal, and you'll see if they form a cohesive narrative or if themes and symbols begin to emerge. The purpose of this technique, I think, is rather straightforward. You're giving yourself something to think about, and by doing that, you're giving your imagination something to play with, and this is giving it a chance to grow and expand. Now, when it comes to these techniques, you don't have to practice all three of them if one of the skills that these techniques teach just happen to come naturally to you. As a for instance, some people have very vivid imaginations but bad focus, other people have great focus but not very vivid imaginations, so if you need to practice one versus the other, go ahead. Before you decide that any technique just isn't for you, I would recommend that you at least give it a solid try, which means doing it for about a month, and then you can choose if it's for you or not. I myself move between meditation techniques as the time requires, as the ritual needs, and as I feel is necessary for how I'm doing in my life. If these instructions aren't really good for you, you're more than welcome to find a meditation teacher in your local area, or you can try to work with me. I have a website where you can try to book a session, and we can either do it through Zoom or in person if you happen to be in the Southern California area. I'll leave the link below. Regardless of how you learn meditation, I just really want you to learn it, because in order to do the next part of the magical journey or the magician's adventure, you're going to need to climb what's called the Tree of Life, and that's part of the Kabbalah. Now, before you say to yourself that the Kabbalah really isn't for you, I have my own different reality map that I'm going to share with you after I share this particular way of doing it that does make use of the Kabbalah. The next section of this video is in fact for those who feel they are masters or well practiced in the art of meditation, because now we have to describe how you're going to climb the Tree of Life and what that exactly means. So, what is the Tree of Life? Well, in the Garden of Eden there were two trees. One was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which Adam and Eve ate from according to that particular story, and the other tree was the Tree of Life. This is the tree that they were unable to eat from before God banished them from the garden. If you are a student of Hermetic Kabbalah, and if you're watching for this long, you have to be, it looks a little bit like this. Now, I know that this all looks like a lot to take in, and it can be quite intimidating for first-timers, so let's look at it slowly from the top to the bottom, and let me try to explain the main parts of it. After I do that, I'm going to tell you what part we're going to begin with, and luckily for you, it requires you to only know a couple of concepts to begin with, because we're looking to have one exact experience at the start of our journey. Let me get to that in a bit. So one of the first things that should have drawn your attention are the spheres that you can see. They are called Sephiroth or Sephira, and they mean emanations in Hebrew. They are not to be considered 10 different gods. Instead, they're 10 different ways that the divine expresses itself in our world. In this case, when I say the world, I actually don't mean just the physical universe. I mean everything on every single level of existence that you could possibly imagine. You'll notice that these spheres are different colors, are assigned different numbers, and have different attributes beyond that. After this, you should see that there are two pillars on the left and the right side. They are Jachin and Boaz, the pillars that stood at the front of King Solomon's temple. After noticing all of this, you should see that a human body has been superimposed on the Tree of Life, and that is to show you that it is also representative of parts of the human body and soul. After noticing the spheres, the next thing you'll have noticed are the lines connecting them. These lines stand for different life experiences or mental states, and are also represented by certain tarot cards, specifically the major arcane cards. In fact, if you're a student of tarot, the minor arcane cards are associated with the spheres as well, the 10s being associated with Malkuth or the 10th sphere, the 7s being associated with the 7th sphere, so on and so forth. In fact, if you wanted to, you could build the entire Tree of Life using a deck of tarot cards. Luckily for you though, if you're just beginning to study all of this, you don't need to worry about all of the Tree of Life yet. We just need to focus on sphere number 10, which is called Malkuth, which means kingdom in Hebrew. That's the sphere that symbolizes the entire physical universe. It is the 10th sphere because it is the final emanation from what we call God. It is the only sphere that includes matter. All of the other spheres indicate a non-material state. All of the spheres, as you may have noticed while we were scrolling down, are associated with visions or experiences. Basically, there are 8 visions and 2 experiences according to this particular take on the Tree of Life. The first experience, which could be visionary, is called knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. It's what you're trying to achieve, to master, as it's called, the 10th sphere. Now, what exactly is this holy guardian angel? Well, it's your truest divine self. This divine self or holy guardian angel is meant to act as a guide for you on the rest of your spiritual journey. So how do we actually go by having this experience then if it's the first one we're supposed to have within the Western mystical system? Well, what you're going to need is a ritual designed to produce this exact effect. So what should you do to make that ritual? If you want to make it on your own, you can, and here's what you should prioritize. You need a ritual whose effects are to keep you so busy with the work at hand that it distracts you from other things. The next thing the ritual should do is strip you down to your original self, or as by much as possible, it should remove the superfluous parts of your personality. After this, the ritual should cause you to become excited for the ultimate vision, and it should begin directing every spiritual force towards having the vision. You should then attempt to attract the angel by reciting or vibrating a mantra that you associate with its name. Ideally, at this point, you're going to say its name. You might be asking, how am I supposed to figure out its name if I don't actually know it? Well, this is where the ritual sort of feeds into itself and kind of becomes paradoxical. You see, until you have the experience the first time, you won't know the name, but you need the name to have the experience. So how exactly does that work out? There are two ways to arrive at the name. You can pick one associated with a god or spirit that you most associate at this moment in your journey with your highest truth or spiritual good, or you can try to divine or create the name, and there are a number of ways to do that. Here's one that I'll give you. You'll need a piece of paper and a dice. On the paper, write a phrase that you associate with your current magical intent. After you've done this, remove all of the vowels and consonants which repeat themselves. Keep the letters in the order that they were originally in, so to say, like before you erased everything, the order that they would have been in when they were in the phrase. But right now you're obviously thinking, well, I can't pronounce this, it's just a bunch of consonants, so here's where the dice comes in handy. Associate the faces of the dice with the following vowels and roll it the number of times based on how many letters you end up with. Here's a quick guide that I'm going to give you. Take a minute to look at it or take a screenshot if you like. If you have any questions about the technique after you use it or before you use it, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. Regardless, once you have it, you can begin using it to craft a ritual that fulfills all of the criteria I've listed so far. Now, although I've been saying this entire time you're going to need to write a ritual, there are a large number of people, or at least a fair number of people, who will not require one in order to have this experience. Some will only need to have an intent, maybe just the name, and then they can center themselves and have a vision where they discover their holy guardian angel. Other people will actually have this experience via a life event. For those people, the life event might be completely unplanned. It might simply be something that gives them this intense spiritual experience. It's happened before. I just want to throw that out there in case anybody thinks, well, what if the ritual isn't for me? And I'm just saying it could not be. What if you find it very difficult to write ritual, or what if that's just simply not your thing and there's no harm or fault in that? Below you will find a PDF in which I have collected 3 rituals that you can attempt, and I hope you enjoy them. Let me know how they work out for you in the comments below. 2 of the rituals happen to be of my own invention, so go ahead and criticize them. I would love any tips on improving if it's ultimately that bad. Moving on though, that's all you're looking to try to achieve. I know I make it sound so simple when I say that, but that's all you really need to do to pull off step 1. For some people, reaching this stage doesn't take very long at all. For others, it can take years, and that's really not an issue. It's just who you happen to be in this particular time in your life. Now, if Kabbalah just isn't for you, let me share with you my particular system. Well, just the beginning of it. It would take too long otherwise. So in my system, the thing that's a little bit more prominent is you have to consider the astral plane or astral state. So what's that? When we dream, we enter into a particular place or state of consciousness, and it's called the astral plane or astral state. This is the place where our subconscious mind is able to speak to us in a way it's usually not able to speak to us at all. Most of the time, everything your subconscious is attempting to do is being mitigated and in some way censored by your conscious mind. According to certain people, including Carl Jung, one of the things that a person should try to do is explore their subconscious, and they can do that by dream walking or path working, or by having what some people also call guided meditation. Now, guided meditation doesn't actually require that you listen to a recording or a person tell you what you're going to think about or meditate about. It just means, usually for me, that you're going to have a very particular goal, and it's generally an imaginative goal. So this system that I'm going to show you, and my system in general, really requires you to have an active imagination, I guess. Although I still think that you're attempting to have the experience of meeting what you can call your holy guardian angel or higher self, I think that there's a few other things you should do before you get there, and these minor experiences, I think, help build up your understanding of religion and visionary experiences, and by doing that, you can sort of better judge what's happening to you. So I'll just share with you the very first thing that I would require any of my students to do, and this is how it works. First, you need to obviously master the initial art of meditation, at least getting into a relaxed and quiet state. Now that you've gotten yourself to this particular state, the next thing that I would need you to do is try to envision yourself standing or sitting in a completely empty and black space. You could also be floating in this space if you want to. The next thing that I need you to imagine, and I need you to do it if you're listening even right now, is to envision the entrance to the inner part of yourself. And the reason I said it that way is, regardless of how that entrance, that doorway, gateway, mirror, pool of water that appears in front of you, whatever that entrance looks like, that's what it looks like for you, and you need to not necessarily obsess about how it's going to look. Ideally, you're going to go with your first impression, and then you can embellish it over time. Now, I'll give you a specific example. I'll use me. For myself, I see this as a mirror just sort of suspended within this space. And I can use it to do a number of things. One of the things that I encourage you to do as an initial experiment is to check in on how you're doing every day. How do you do that? Well, each one of us has what I call an astral image of ourselves, and it's not necessarily the same every day. Why isn't it the same every day? Well, it's a mixture of both how you feel at the moment, who you are in the past, and how you see the future for yourself at this particular point in time. So it's going to change based on all of those factors, and that's okay. In fact, you can use this change to try to get a sort of sense of yourself throughout time. How do you look every day within the reflective surface or within the opening that you can find? Now, some of you might say, wait, my particular entrance to my mind is a door or just some sort of other entryway that isn't, let's say, reflective. Well, in that case, your second imaginative exercise or second guided meditation would be to, instead of finding the entrance to your mind, to find this particular reflective surface or to conjure one within this space, within this astral plane. Now, having done that, or having had that from the start, the next thing that you have to do is just look into it in the same way that you would look into a pond or a mirror. And again, you're going to try to take your first impressions. You're going to try to see what your mind presents to you as opposed to what you want to see in this particular case. All you have to do at this stage if you're starting out is take note of how you look, including your physical appearance and clothing, anything you might be holding, and you'll note this in your journal. And by comparing how you look over time, you're going to notice some interesting trends that pop up. All of this is useful because by seeing what your mental landscape looks like, you'll be able to better understand what is an impression that's coming from yourself, what's an impression that's coming from the deeper part of yourself, and what might actually be your mind touching an outside consciousness. So not only through this practice are you developing your mental capacities, you're also increasing your ability to ultimately have the experience that we're looking for. This experience, again, is knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, or a realization of your higher and truer self. That's the experience we're all trying to have, no matter what you call it, if we're working on the Western magical path. I could go into more detail about this experience, I could try to explain it to you, but that would be missing the point. Ultimately, this experience is one of a kind and life-changing, and it is likely to be different than anybody else's, and here's the reason. It's something that Crowley wrote, and he said, "For the colors are many, but the light is one. Therefore thou writest that which is of mother of emerald, and of lapis lazuli, and of turquoise and alexandrite. Another writeth the words of topaz, and of deep amethyst, and of grey sapphire, and of deep sapphire with tinge of his blood." What he means with this is, if you consider light to be truth, like the ultimate truth is white light, but that when it comes down to us through reality, it gets distorted as if there were a prism. What we basically end up debating are shades of the rainbow, so to say, but we're still talking about the same fundamental truth. What we've gotten distracted by, what the illusion is that all of the colors are fundamentally true, when the truth is it's their mixture, it's their source, it's the real truth. Having knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel allows you to begin this journey, and it allows you to begin it within your particular ray. It allows you to begin it within your branch of understanding during this incarnation. Let me read a little bit further so you can understand. "One mounteth onto the crown by the moon, and by the sun, and by the arrow, and by the foundation, and by the dark home of the stars from the black earth. This is to say there are many paths to actually reach the one. In fact, if you look at the Tree of Life, there are ultimately 3 that you could choose to take. You don't have to take what's called the Magician's Path, or the Path of the Lightning Bolt, or the Path of the Flaming Sword. You can take whatever combination of paths work for your particular spiritual journey. However, if you want to be a magician or a practitioner of magic, there is a very exact path that you're looking to take. Let me outline it here. In future episodes, I'll explain how you're supposed to try and ascend the spheres, as it's called, but for now, let me just show you the path that you're trying to take. As you see, it goes through everything. Before I finish, let me say a word about practical magic, because not every practitioner of magic, and not even everybody who does it for, let's say, quote-unquote, serious reasons, always performs what you could call high magic. Some people do what you could call acts of simple or practical magic. Meditation also helps with this, and it actually does help you achieve greater success. Now, when I say practical magic, I am talking about trying to make something happen in the physical world, like trying to affect it through spells and such. If you don't think that works, you probably also don't think prayer works, and if you think prayer works but you don't think that works, you seem to very much be hedging your bets for a weird reason, and I'm not going to call you out on it, but it's something that's really not cool. In fact, practicing meditation can make prayer more effective because both require you to have focused intent and to decide what you want ahead of time and remain fixated on it while you're either performing the spell ritual or while you're intoning the prayer or saying the prayer. I mean, I don't know a single church, synagogue, or mosque on the planet that's claiming distracted prayer works, so if they want to come at me on that, they're more than welcome to. Again, let me just restate something I've said a few times during this video. It's all in your mind. Your mind is the tool to control not only your fate, but the part of the universe that you find yourself in. If, as quantum mechanics shows us, the mind can affect reality, then go ahead and learn to use your mind better. Anyhow, that does it for today's episode. I want to take this moment to say thank you for all of you that are watching and subscribing, liking, and sharing my content. You are helping me do great on YouTube, and I'm doing much better than I thought I would do in the beginning, so thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to listen to what I have to say. Like I mentioned earlier, if you feel you would like my personal help on anything, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at www.enplectures.com. There you can book me for lectures, workshops, retreats. I work with groups and people one-on-one. You can also book me for spiritual direction, and since I do believe you should try that before you commit to it. With all that said, don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Emiliano Noriega Petty, your host for Past, Present, and Occult.